Welcome to the Mills Knows Bills podcast. My name is Mills Bender. I'm the founder and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, where we help you, variable income earners, master your money in 90 days. The point of this podcast is to help you make the most of your fluctuating income so you can stop living paycheck to paycheck, pay off your debt twice as fast, and get on track toward reaching both your personal and professional financial goals. Now, as I continue to grow my team here at MKB, you may have some guest hosts from time to time. However, our goal does not change. Whether we're bringing in a guest speaker, having an in-depth conversation about our personal finances, or talking about a topic that is of interest to you, our goal is to help you master your money. Hey, MKB fam, welcome back to another episode of the Mills Knows Bills podcast. I'm your host and CEO of Mills Knows Bills, Mills Bender. And with me today, I have two amazing guests. We're going to talk about your favorite topic, taxes. No, we have Drew and Tyler with us today. And as you can see, they showed up in not a suit and tie. And I think that's amazing because now we get to be casual and have a fun conversation. But before we dive into all of that, Drew, please take a moment, introduce yourself, and then Tyler, you're welcome to take your shot at it too.
Yeah, my name is Drew Clukey. Tyler Tebault over here is the partner, one of the three of us. So my brother Mike is also the third partner who's not here, who did not want to do any public speaking.
He said absolutely not.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not his thing.
No.
So we're based out of St. Augustine, Florida, kind of full service CPA firm. We've been friends longer than we've been partners, but it's also just synonymous at this point. So it's been a lot of fun, and that's really what we do. I'll leave T to more of the who he is and what he does and what we do.
Oh, I was just going to say same thing that you just said, but
Ditto.
I was going to say, we all work together previous to the firm that we started. So,
Okay. That's awesome.
At another firm in St. Charles County.
And before we get into the questions and putting your expertise in the light here, I work with a lot of people nationwide. A lot of people who listen in on the podcast are nationwide. Can you help people nationwide?
It's a great question we get all the time. The answer quickly is yes.
Okay.
Are there things that we're better suited for? Absolutely. Are we good about saying no to things we're uncomfortable doing or not necessarily qualified to do? I've learned that's a quick way to get yourself in trouble, saying yes to everything.
I like that.
But we can absolutely help people in pretty much every state. I even have some clients in Puerto Rico. So
nice. Yeah. All right. That's pretty cool. So I asked that question because I don't want to get to the end and somebody just couldn't finish the episode and not get that answered. Yeah. So let's kick it off with all of the really fun Instagram advice that we see.
We wrote that down.
We did write that down before we came here.
All right. Tyler, what's the worst?
I would like to start with I have no social media, first of all. I do not have social media, so I get
neither do
from clients. I'll get it for this podcast, don't worry. Absolutely. But T is on TikTok more than he works, so we'll let him talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, my absolute favorite
no denial
is the G-Wagon comment of
oh my word.
You buy it and you write it off. And then the lady's like, well, what happens? You just write it off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is the worst advice to give somebody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think another one of my favorites is I'm going to put my kids on payroll, but my kids too.
I was going to ask you, after knowing about your kids and not getting to know each other a little bit before this, whether or not your kid was on payroll.
No, he doesn't do anything. He's my emotional support animal. No. I block out my kids' faces every time. Every time. No.
Good for you.
No. Awesome. Until he gets to the point where he can actually do something productive.
Some actual earned income?
Earned income. Yeah. I mean, it'd be like $2 an hour. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. You're going to work 7,000 hours.
7,000 hours. No, that one's probably awful. And I think my second favorite is my dog is a security animal.
Ooh.
That's another one I see a lot.
I've had somebody ask me that before.
What was your advice?
No. Because I knew who the person was and I knew they didn't need a security animal.
Right. And I think the crazy part is there's been so much, we'll just say 10, 15 years ago, of people playing it too much by the book.
Mm-hmm.
But as we know, there's more literature in the IRS code talking about how you can legally avoid taxes and you actually have to abide by them. And we've taken the complete 180. We're on the opposite end of the spectrum now. And we need to find some middle ground, right? And so how do you guys approach that conversation with your clients, finding that middle ground?
That's actually good. And I'll circle back to the dog thing because I have a client who has a dog who they are very small. I don't even know what you would call it. Microgreen producer, like, that you sell at the farmer's market, like the little like
the shots of like wheatgrass and that
type of stuff. And they house all of it out of their house. Like, I don't even know how they're.
You don't ask questions you don't want the
neighbors skittle. Anyway, they're wonderful people, but they came to me with that same thing. Like, hey, we have our dog branded on all our stuff. And I was like, okay, where are you, kind of, it was like a leading on, like, where are you getting at? Mm-hmm. Well, like, can we pay for its vet bills through the business? Like, it's the face of our company. And I'm like, the right answer to you is no. But there's probably some substantiation, and you could go look at court case. Like, we could go look at some court cases. I don't know if anyone spent that much money where it's questioned to that extent, but I was like, it's nominal enough. You're talking about being within the realm. And so we kind of came up with a solution, and I was like, okay, I can work with this. You're not trying to tell me you're offsetting every dollar you make with your vet costs. So I can live with a little bit of it.
Okay. Tyler, do you have anything you want to add?
I just think it's important to like really understand the client and like what their situation is. And yes, a lot of people will come in and like, well, my prior CPA said, I just need to go buy a vehicle. Like, that's not strategy. That's just spending money.
Yeah.
So I think just getting to know the client better and seeing holistically what they have. And then also asking the questions for the future. Cause I think there was a couple episodes back that you interviewed somebody and, he asked the question of like, why is profit a bad thing? Like, why is showing profit such a bad thing? And like, we try to get that through to clients that, it's a lot more expensive to go buy that $100,000 truck than just to pay the 25% tax.
Right. And is it going to give you a return on that? Yeah. What you consider investment when it's really just an expense. Yeah. Right. I think so many business owners are afraid of paying taxes. You bring up a really good point. Like, they want to write everything off under the sun. But what they don't realize is that they're actually hurting themselves in the future. We'll just take it with a very simple understanding. I used to work in mortgages, and I would often work with business owners who would provide their tax returns, and they'd maybe state that they made $40,000. Well, you're going to buy what $40,000 a year can afford. You can't buy that $2.5 million McMansion. Yeah. Right. And so then they're frustrated and they're like, well, I made all this money. I'm like, but you didn't, like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Yeah. So which is it? Yeah. Right. And so what are some other circumstances that you guys see where it's actually doing more harm to write everything off?
Oh gosh. I mean, I see that all the time. Like, I had a client come in, full service, hardworking young dude, came in and was like, I kind of gave him his tax projection based on what I knew to be fact and true. Hey, year into today, this is where you are. He's like, that can't be right. I can't pay that down. I'm like, you made money. Like, good for you. You've worked hard. Like, that's a product of, he's like, there's no way I can't pay that. I'm like, what can I do to get rid of that? And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's look at retirement. Let's look at, we haven't funded your 401k. Like, you can do those types of things. Like, he's like, well, so-and-so told me I could buy a truck, which is the very common practice. I'm like, I literally looked down and I said, do you need that truck for like another route that you're going to go acquire for this pool, sir? Like, and he's like, well, not really. And I'm like, what about the insurance costs on that? Like, I'm like thinking of all these things. I'm like, so you'd rather just have this other thing to manage and take care of rather than just keeping. And I gave him that exact thing. Like, spend 100, you still got to spend 40 on tax. Like, that sort of, it's that fear of paying. I would fear or vendetta against the IRS or like tax in general. It's got a bad stigma to it.
It does have a bad stigma. And I think I have a very interesting perspective when it comes to taxes, where I try to have more saved up than what I actually owe. Yeah. For example, a few years ago, I thought I was going to owe about $25,000 in addition to everything else we paid. I ended up having to owe like 17. Yeah. I celebrated. You got a bonus. Yeah, I paid $17,000. And all of my friends were like, Why are you excited about that? Because I saved everything else. And so I think a lot of business owners struggle with this idea of paying taxes. Number one, because they don't know where it's actually going. They feel like taxes are bad, right? That's
a whole other podcast.
That's a whole other podcast in and of itself. But very tangibly, they can't afford that tax bill because they've not been good stewards of the money that's actually come in. And so they don't have it set aside ready to be paid towards taxes. And so how would you guys kind of dissect that conversation?
That is a very common thing, especially between, and T can probably attest to this. Sorry, Tyler, people don't know this T, but between October,
we're on that basis now.
We're on that basis.
Between October and December is like tax projection for people that need just a quick snapshot, and tax planning for those that like need to execute on some things, right? There's 2 levels to that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we get to a tax projection and I'm like, yeah, so here's your cash requirement to do. Oh, I don't have that cash. That is by far the most common response I get from people. And I'm like, what did you do with that? And the amount of people who live potentially outside their means or just,
paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah. And make more money than I do.
Yeah.
A lot more money than I do. And it's fascinating to me. So like hammering home, like being a good steward or helping the client set up on the front end, which I feel like I've tried to do a good job with our younger staff and like, hey, if we're getting ahead of it and we know this is what they need to execute on tax wise for 2024, let's go ahead and think about 2025 and say like, hey, make it a non-negotiable form. We're going to set up some sort of like reasonable comp that we pay in tax and they get a net paycheck of 0 and they can take distributions the rest of the way. I don't care what they do with the rest, but at least there's a minimum coverage.
I love net 0 paycheck.
And by the time that's all said and done, they don't even notice it's gone.
No.
Like, and I'm like, hey, but telling them all at the end of, you got to come and say, well, this, like, I can't do that. No. I want to sometimes just pick them up and be like, what?
Why not?
What are you doing?
Well, they're not paying enough attention, right? Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
They're stuck in the day to day, but they're not actually looking at their accounts. They're not making financially based decisions. And so they see money in the account and they spend it, but they have no idea where their money is going to be 13 weeks from now, let alone a year from now.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I try to talk about with my clients is setting aside a little bit every single week. And on top of that, having a conversation with your accountant at least once a quarter.
Yeah.
Most people wait to plan for April in April.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That you
Those
have
are my favorite conversations.
but you have no, leeway to actually do something at that point.
And it's hard. You're not everybody is gonna follow, saving saving that percentage or whatnot. We try to be good on the front end of doing with new clients. It might just be the annual payroll run that we do in December. Also, some benefit to that is they can put that money into a money market account and build interest.
Yes.
And what a lot of people don't know is if you remit your federal withholding through your paycheck and it covers all your tax, there's no penalties if you remit it in December. So you just made money on those dollars all year round. It's personally what I do with my own payroll.
Yeah.
So, but then we try to get them in the next month of January to set up on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So then they do have that.
They don't have to feel it as much.
People on that, mindset of this is just another bill of the business. It's the cost of doing business. Then I feel like their mindset starts changing.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
I'm surprised you pay tax.
So let's kind of shift gears here a little bit. There's been a buzz phrase, not a buzzword, but a buzz phrase that's been kind of going around in my circles lately. Tax strategist.
Okay.
What's the difference between a tax strategist and an accountant?
Oh, do you want to go first?
You're like, I don't want that one.
No, I mean, T's a tax strategist. I mean, T's
that's why it's T, right?
That's why it's, That's why it takes 2 of us Clukies to be the Clukey and Tebault, and it just is one Tebault. That's it.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I feel as if an accountant, which, I mean, anybody can, if they want to learn the code and they want to learn the different strategies, they can provide this. But it's really the difference, in my opinion, is who's wanting to provide value to a client and who just wants to do data entry, right? Anybody can take financials, dump them into a software, spit it out. Here you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for your money.
Yeah.
what we try to strive for is to plan as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why we have different, we tell clients we have tax planning, and this is where we'll implement strategies for you and we'll help you through that process. And then there's tax projections, where we'll give you the baseline, but we're not going to give you all the value up front unless you're willing to pay for it, because it's taken us a long time to learn all these strategies too. There's R&D credits, cost segregation studies, Augusta rules. I mean, entity optimization, you name it. There's so many things out there to save you tax dollars. A lot of people just decide just to file tax returns and move on to the next year.
Yeah. I appreciate that, because there are a lot of business owners that are educating themselves in this field now, because they realize that a lot has been left on the table.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's become such a buzz phrase of tax strategist. And anytime I speak with a prospect on the phone, I ask them, do you have an accountant or tax strategist?
Yeah.
And I'd say about 90% of the time, it's, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for that planning and that forecasting and making sure that you're thinking strategically rather than doing the data entry, as you said.
And it doesn't have to be, a lot of people think that also with planning that it's this instant gratification that I must save all this money in this year, but it's planning for the future. I mean, there's clients who are at retirement that we're looking at doing Roth conversions to lower their RMDs in the future.
Nice.
Right? So how much can we pay in tax today to have tax-free in the future when your R&Ds hit? So it's a little bit of forward thinking. I like to say we like to be proactive, not reactive.
And that is exactly our mission at MKB too. We like to be proactive. For everybody who is watching / listening and does not know what an RMD is, right? You don't know what an RMD is, right? Great. Do you want to explain what
You're
RMD?
A few years away from it, don't worry.
Just a couple.
RMD is a required minimum distribution. So as of now, it's 73 before you have to take money out of an IRA or a qualified account. So that's that.
And it's specifically for a traditional IRA. Something that you've pushed off tax.
And if you have money in that and or a Roth, which is post-tax that you've already paid tax on, they make you take that pre-tax money first.
Ooh.
They get theirs, don't worry.
Our team is walking by and they're shouting and jumping. So what is something that y'all get asked all the time that maybe surprises you that people don't know?
True, that's the best one.
Do I? Did I forget?
LLC.
Oh, no.
He already knows.
It grinds my gears.
Massive eye roll.
Yeah, it's so fun. And it happens with, I'll tell you what, 90% of the people that ask this question, and I love them because I got a lot of friends in it, are real estate agents that ask this question. And I love them. I love them all.
We love our real estate
I'm
agents.
not going to share this with my real estate friends when it goes live.
I will.
Okay.
You don't have social media. What are you talking about?
That's true. My biggest question that I get that is, I don't even know where it comes from, is say they're a single member LLC. That's a legal entity, right? You set that up on, if we're in the state of Florida, you set that up on Sunbiz. It is you. It is in theory you with a little bit of asset protection. And at that point, you've changed nothing from your tax composition.
You.
Like you are still Joe Schmo LLC and Joe Schmo. You have income. It's self-employment income.
Yep.
Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The question I get the most is, well, should I be an S Corp or an LLC? I'm like, they have to go together.
It grinds your gears a little bit when you're
makes
hearing
me mad. And then I explain it and people are like, you're wrong. I'm like, sure.
Sure. I love when people ask me that. And then they're like, no. I'm like pretty positive. You either have to be an LLC or an S Corp. I'm like, sure, take that elsewhere.
How can I be both then?
Yeah. So for all of you, this is the time you look in the camera, right?
Yes.
This is the time.
Pay attention.
You are an LLC treated as an S corporation when there's a one-time election that has to go into it. And it's not that hard and it's not that complex. So don't let some other CPA tell you it's too much work. There's a lot of benefit. There can be a lot of benefit to it. But I would also say I get a lot of people on the flip side that say I have to be an S corporation. And then we talk through their scenario. And I'm like, you know what? The cost of us doing it versus what it's going to save you tax-wise probably isn't going to be much of a benefit to you net. Now, if you want to pay me versus the IRS, cool.
Sure.
Yeah. But I want to let you know that we can still keep things simple. Yeah. On your 1040, you don't have to do that. That's my favorite question. That makes no sense.
Makes me so frustrated. Because there's so many experts out there that are like, it's one or the other. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. I know I'm not a tax professional, right, but I know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Y'all.
Yeah.
And I know where my line is.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard.
It is hard.
Because, I mean, it goes into so much further detail from
it
there.
Does.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about is disregarded entities as a whole of just one member LLC.
Mm-hmm.
And I lose people quick when I use that phrase. I'm like, yeah, you're a disregarded entity on your schedule.
They're like, a what? Huh?
And then they're like, my tax return doesn't matter.
English?
Am I a sole proprietor? No.
Nope.
Anyway.
Do you trust me?
Jump. I'm going to start that.
Jump, Jack.
Anyway,
jump.
Yeah, that's good.
So I had another question. Oh, not necessarily a question, anecdote leading into one. My CPA
who's not us, by the way.
Who's not you guys, no.
Feelings are a little hurt right now. I'm going to look into the camera on this
I'm just wanting to know if your CPA has ever been on this podcast.
Listen. It's a family member who's probably going to fire me at one point because she wants to retire. But she did not realize that when I established my business, it was going to be a business, not like a little business, right?
Oh.
And so I ended up making more money in the first year than she was expecting. To which she then said, okay, well, we need to file you as an S Corp. Okay. Is there the right time for the business owners out there who made more money than they realized to elect to become an S Corp? Or is there always, a little maybe slap on the wrist, ask for forgiveness, not permission type deal?
Oh, there's an ask for forgiveness, slap on the wrist, permission type deal. I don't think I rephrased that the same way, but I mean,
it's okay. Yours was better.
Yeah, it's common practice. Like people come to you after the fact and you're like, you're working through some of those tax projections or tax planning. You're like, oh, buddy, you need that. This is you. Mm-hmm. This is not a one-off, correct? That's kind of one of the questions is like, this is not a one-off year.
It's going to be a consistent,
to do this and or more. Cool. Let's get that. Oh, but I heard that was late. Technically, you have to file within the first 2 months and 15 days of the following year if you want to be a surefire yes.
I don't even think the IRS knows.
Then there's the old like Rev Proc something, or you can file late.
Mm-hmm.
Really, at any given point, there's going to be some kickback because you've probably not filed an extension for that return at that point. There's going to be some letters you get back from the IRS, but more times than not, if you've been compliant from the front end, they will allow you a grace period and allow you to retroactively make that S election for a prior period. Was that your question?
That was my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that you can do that.
Yeah. I know.
With the late election.
I hear all the time, like, it's too late. I'm like,
That's why I always
ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Anybody who comes in, I'm like, let's establish an LLC for you. Because if it doesn't, if we get to the end of the year and you don't have to be an S corporation, filing on Schedule C is just fine. But if we get to that, then in our planning process, we'll see what makes the most sense for you, and then we'll start talking about compensation and what does that look like and reasonable comp. And
why do you feel like so many people should file as let me rephrase. Why do you feel like so many business owners believe they should file as an S Corp? Because there's 3 other options out there.
Yeah, there's plenty of different ways to go about it. I mean, at its core, I would find that a majority of our tax business are S corporations and the shareholders that are associated with it, right? So those pass-through entities. And the reason people are partnerships a lot of time is because they hold appreciable assets in it, i.e. real estate, those types of things. There's a little more complex tax structure that goes along with partnerships versus S corps. S corps are very like, do this, do that, you're fine. I started to ramble and I kind of forgot where I was, but I would say as I talk through it, the most of the time people think that because they've probably either heard it from someone else or they've gotten advice at a prior period from another CPA.
Yeah.
And
I feel like people try to compare apples to apples all the time.
Oh yeah.
When it's really apples to oranges.
Yeah. Or maybe a banana every now and then. It's just totally different situations.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get that all the time of my friend has the same business as me.
But you're not the same business.
They got money back. And I'm like,
oh, those
I got money back.
Here we go.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh.
Get your popcorn, guys.
Yeah.
Well, you lost money and you made $500,000. So there's the difference, buddy.
That's fair.
All right. So let's talk about questions that business owners don't tend to ask you, but you wish they would.
Pretty much any question, but more consistently throughout the year. Like I think as we introduce ourselves to new clients and we bring younger staff involved and they get in, I'd love to reiterate the point to any new clients and existing clients, like your time to call and ask a question is when you think of it in February, not now in December when you're like, hey, I did this thing back in February. Can we like make it a business thing? Or can we somehow loop this into our kind of plan or projection? And I'm like, yeah, but here's your exposure. Like, yes, but if this ever got asked, you're probably not winning this. And so you want to have that. So I would say just more consistent communication. And I say that, and then like certain people will be up every day. Thankfully, they're like my friends who are clients. So it's like we talk about
He's just
life.
saying that because this is recorded.
Yeah, that's true.
Why do you feel like people don't want to reach out, though?
I feel like that's fair. I mean, I wish people were more forward thinking about where they wanted to take their businesses. But I feel like so many people are, working in their business and not working on their business. And like that's such a problem that we have today. And like we find ourselves sometimes doing the same thing, and then we have to do a partner retreat and like take a step back and go, okay, why do we have 20 people here? Like, okay, like we need to be working on the business.
Yeah No, that's fair. Do you think that people don't reach out to you because there's this stigma that accountants are scary?
Probably so. It's an uncomfortable subject. I mean, don't get me wrong.
You don't look scary.
You look scary.
But listen, I'm scared. I'm scared of my own CPA. Okay,
oh, don't do that. That's family.
I mean, yeah, but she knows she's scary.
Yeah,
it's fine. She's a very strict personality.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's fair. But every time she calls me, I'm like, oh, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
That is funny because I have so many clients who are like, I have a client every time I call him. He's like, oh, how much do I owe? I'm like, I've called you 1 out of 150 times telling you that you had to cut a check. I'm like, I don't understand where this came from. He's like, yeah, but it was like one of the first times. I was like, well,
the availability heuristic is what was kind of imprinted in their minds.
Yeah, I also just think it's a super sensitive subject. I mean, you're dealing with people's finance. Like we sometimes know more about what's going on in someone's household finances than the other spouse. Which is not a great, I by no means think that is a good motto to live by, but I would say that there are a lot of situations that I can name off the top of my head where I probably know more about where their current financial situation is than their spouse.
That's scary.
So it's like, it's an uncomfortable, but it's also like an uncomfortable thing to be like, and to come to you and say, hey, I'm doing this and that, and I spent a bunch of money and I don't really have any money. And they know the answer is going to be most likely you're going to owe some tax and you don't have that cash. Or we try to work some miracles, but you can only work so much magic.
What types of businesses do you guys like to work with the most?
Ooh.
Like industry specific? I would definitely say we are generalist to our core, right? So we have an array of every industry. But we do have focuses like Micah, he really knows farmers really well. And which is even funnier because he's a city boy.
He's my much older, more sophisticated brother.
And like,
that's awesome.
For me, it's real estate and construction. I've kind of taken a little bit more interest to of diving down and figuring out like construction accounting and understanding the realm of that and how it impacts and tax.
Yeah. What about you?
Ooh. I work with a lot of real estate agents, even though I just kind of
you just kind of like on them.
But I would say
you might not be working with them anymore.
That's okay. They can still be my friends. I don't know. I can think of a buddy who takes kids fly fishing for a business up in North Carolina.
That's fun.
In Virginia. And that's actually a nonprofit he has. And then on the flip side, he has a food safety consulting business. So it's
interesting.
Very random, right?
Yeah.
We have a gentleman who has probably 6 or 7 different entities that do all a number of different things, where there's a transfer pricing study put in place through KPMG, who's a much smarter group than us. And then we kind of follow through with that, but he does ballistics manufacturing out in Texas.
Cool.
And so,
I feel like he just poo-pooed on our firm very quickly too.
I mean,
Well,
listen,
I mean,
outsource to the people that know things. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, I've
They
probably
gotta
sent
take a
you,
legal stance on
3,
that. Oh, yeah.
4 people at this point, because I don't do taxes.
yeah,
I don't do that.
yeah.
I don't want to do that.
It's
That's
fine.
not my
It's-
jam.
It's good to know your lane.
Exactly.
But I also think like, my brother's going to laugh at me when he hears this, because I'm the first one to be like, I don't want to do any standalone 1040 work. And for those that don't know, that's just like
Personal.
a TurboTax-esque type return.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes those are my favorite conversations with people, because they come in and it's like Sally and Steve and they're 80 and they got some things going on, and it's not very complex, but they just appreciate sitting down and like having a cup of coffee and hearing about our kids and the firm, and they could really care less about the tax return. And is it the best use of time? Maybe not, but they love it, and it's fun. Yeah. So very generalist, I would say. It would be hard to be specific, niche oriented in St. Augustine, I would say.
It would be.
Yeah.
You could probably get into real estate just because of that, or restaurants, like not as nearly as much as Winter Park, but there's a lot of that. I
would say, like, for our firm, the one thing that we do is like really get to know the client.
Yeah.
So, it's really understanding what they do. And we will, we spend a lot of time outside of the office too, at the client's facility or office, figuring out, how does all this work? So we understand the numbers too.
I like that, because it's a nice tailored approach. We say that we market to blue collar business owners, but half of our portfolio is white collar right now, just through word of mouth. But what we found is, even though we're industry agnostic, every single business owner we work with has some level of grit and resilience.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it worthwhile in having those conversations. They're people that I would grab dinner with after work, and so it makes the entrepreneurship side, all the struggles, feel a little bit more enjoyable at the end of the day.
Yeah, those success stories too.
Important.
Yeah.
Very important.
I would agree.
Oh, I mean, we really try to hit home with the rest of our group. Like, these people should be an extension of your family, more or less. Like, and if they step out of line or not respectful or anything like that, like, there's times and places to cut ties and do those things. But those, and I think our group does a tremendous job of treating those people like exactly how I would hope I would treat them. So
I like that.
Yeah. It's the saying that is like, treat everybody like they're your only client. So
Ooh.
Tough to do.
It is a tough
in practice,
but
I do like that though.
That's why you wake up and are sitting there at 3:00 when your baby's crying last night and you're
word.
thinking about work.
I texted one of my clients a couple weeks ago at 3 a.m. because my daughter got me up to nurse. And I had finally figured out the issue in his cash flow projection at 3 a.m. of all times.
Sometimes it clicks at 3 a.m.
So I texted him. I was like, I'm so sorry. This is an ungodly hour. I hope that this doesn't wake you. Here's the information.
That's a new feature that Apple should come out with is the
delayed
send or do not disturb send.
Right. Because he doesn't check his email. I needed to text him. Otherwise, I would have forgot. I probably could have written it in a note, but let's be honest. 5 hours later, when I got my day started, I would have forgotten to send the text. He texted me at like 6 a.m. his time. I was like, wow, thanks. He's like, why were you up? And I was like, oh, I was just,
just up.
Working on your account.
Working hard.
Working hard.
Awesome.
Miller, how are we doing on time?
33.
Goes by fast.
Perfect. It does go by really fast. You having a good time, Tyler?
Fantastic.
Is this your first podcast?
This is easier than I thought it would be.
Not that intimidating.
I mean, a little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
I mean, my face is giant right here. That makes me intimidated. That makes me intimidated. But, it's fine. It's fine. We're all casual here.
Yeah. I'm so thankful that, we get to work in an environment where we can pick what we want to work, like where to work. And I'm so thankful that you also picked up on that when we walked in. You were stoked about it. And
I was really
Josh.
excited about it. Oh my gosh. Josh is
when he said, you don't look like a CPA, I'm like, that's good. Keep it that way. But there's the occasional time where you got to go to court for a client and you do have to dress up.
Time and place.
Yeah.
Time and place.
I'm still working to wear this to a professional setting, but doesn't always work.
I mean, listen, if I'm going to speak on stage, I'm going to dress up. I'll still be in my sneakers. Everything else will be dressed up. Because like, let's be honest, heels and me walking and talking, it's a lethal combination.
100%.
Yeah. But if I'm going to see one of my clients at their construction sites, no. Gotta dress appropriately. But as we start rounding out this podcast episode, is there something that I did not ask you that you were just wanting me to ask so badly? I know you guys wrote down some stuff.
I put it on a OneNote, which is on my computer and not on my phone.
Do you have your laptop?
It's maybe in the car.
Maybe.
Who knows? It wasn't that good if I can't remember it right now.
Oh, fair. That's fair.
What else?
Anything
we talked about? I'm thinking of even the funny things, because I think one of the things was like, oh, what are some stigma or bad advice people get?
I feel like we wrote down quite a few of those.
Yeah.
We talked about the LLC and the S Corp. We talked about people writing off their G-Wagons.
Talked about the Instagram reels, the write-off people.
Yeah.
Yep.
The dogs.
Miller, I feel like we need some Jeopardy music behind this if there's not any copyright issues with that.
Yeah, that's
as we're brainstorming.
I can whistle it. Anything we've not talked about that we want to talk about?
Let me ask my student. Hey, Joy, do you have any tax questions that you want to know?
I am a dependent right now.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know anything.
That's fair.
So going into, let's say in a few years, I go into my first year of filing my own taxes. What's your word of advice? I know you said you hate the TurboTax one-off. Let's pretend that I'm that old woman.
Let's pretend she's the old woman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joy. I'm sorry.
You just squashed her
Joy, I'm sorry. I would say find one of them. I'm sure there's plenty of accounting professionals that are studying at UCF. Maybe not.
I don't know. I was just going to say, don't find Drew.
Don't
Clearly.
I'll give you Tyler's number when you leave, and you can call him when you graduate. No, I think just asking questions. Like, there's no bad question. No question is a bad question. And don't feel like you're bothering someone who is, they don't even have to be a CPA to answer a tax question, right? My answers can be the same as anyone else that's researched it enough. But I would say get in front of someone and have someone else do it for you early. Like, take care of the tax return early for you. There is nothing wrong with TurboTax for those out there that use it if you need it. But there's something to be said about using a professional. And just even if it's like you have a W-2 and you come on this podcast and you're full-time, hypothetically, right? I would still ask the question, see what you can do to put yourself in a better spot from a tax perspective. Sometimes there's not a lot for individuals with not a lot going on that you can change or adjust in your position, but there's occasionally things. And I would say just ask the professional.
I like that. So,
she's got another one.
Oh, she has another one. You have another one?
Yeah, I was going to ask what's the biggest pickle you guys have gone in or someone has gotten themselves into that you've had to get them out.
Well, I did reference being in court.
Yeah. I was a little curious about that.
It was for a client. There was some, he said, she said with another shareholder, and I had to go testify as an expert witness, which I did not feel like very much I didn't feel like an expert going into it. And then when I looked at the jury and the judge, and it was like I felt like I was in one of those TV shows, and I was like, this is my first time in a courtroom. I was like, this is easy. These people don't know anything. Like, these people know nothing. Like, I have to, in theory, dumb it down a little bit just so that the jury and the judge can get an idea of what's going on. So that was probably the most nerve-wracking thing I've done.
All right.
Where I was like, I hope this doesn't come to this. And there was some talk of it happening. And then all of a sudden he was like, hey, I need you to be in Houston Monday. And this was a Saturday afternoon when I was at the farmer's market with my wife. And I was like, and our two girls were like, I gotta go. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna fly out tomorrow. But it was fun, and I learned a lot.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a pretty big pickle.
I want to hear
What's your big pickle story?
I mean, it wasn't anything that we did, but we had a client come to us.
I should say it was nothing we did.
No, I definitely.
I just wanted to start that off.
Good point.
But this client came to us and they filed their own return, and I think they had $100,000 loss on Schedule C, no income, and so they're being audited, and so they brought the audit to us. Help us out. How do we get out of this? I'm like, I don't know if you're getting out of this, but let's see what we can do. And so they were asking, for specific accounts. And I was like, y'all are really lucky right now because they're only really asking for office supplies and meals and something else. I was like, this should be easy.
Yeah.
Let's gather the receipts. We'll put it together. I'll send it off to the IRS agent. They couldn't provide me with receipts. So then we had to go sit down in Jacksonville with the IRS agent. And then the IRS agent's manager came down and sat with us. And basically, she just disallowed everything, which I was like, I saw this coming from a mile away. So I told him, I was like, this is probably going to happen. We actually ended up disengaging with that client because of even after there, we needed more information to provide to them, and they were unwilling to give that to us. So it was not the right fit for us. But that's like
crazy. Some people are just committed to it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how ugly it gets, they're committed to their what.
Yeah.
Love that.
Good question, Joy.
Yeah,
that was a good question.
Joy always has great questions. I'm not gonna lie. She's a rock star.
I mean, I feel like Drew brought up a really good point earlier, which is like, if you're asking your CPA a question, their first response is, it's too much work, or that's too hard, or no, you can't do that. Like, they're not interested in helping you out. Truly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And we see that all the time, where people coming to us, and I don't know all the IRS code. I don't know anybody who does know all the IRS code, but we pay enough in software costs to research the answer. I'll be the first person to sit there and tell you, hey, I don't know the answer, but I know enough people, and we have the right software that I can find the answer for you.
Yeah, I think that's wise, because I think sometimes the best response you can give is, I don't know, but I'll get back to you.
But I'll find out.
Yeah. Because like you said, nobody can know everything about everything. And those that say they do are probably lying to you.
Yes. I'll tell you what. I don't know if we're running short on time.
No, we're good.
We're going to give you access to this thing we bought called Ask Blue Jay.
Ask Blue Jay.
And it is an AI generative tool, just like everybody else in the world that does AI these days. But it is specific to the IRS code and tax law, that like actual court cases and findings. And you can put in like, hey, what I'm thinking of one I wanted to do the other way.
It is ChatGPT for tax.
See,
and it spits out client memos and helps you write an email if you need. So like our younger staff, it costs about as much as a staff member, but it's alleviated a lot of like, hey, I caught one of our staff going on Google after we had paid for this, and I was like, if I see Google and you typing in how do I do something, I'm going to take your computer away.
I might flip this table. See, that's something that I would do just for fun.
Yeah.
In my free time.
Yeah. For sure.
That sounds really cool.
It's actually a really cool tool. And it's been, one of our staff went to a continuing education conference and came back, and she was like, hey, what do you think about doing this? And then we like looked at it, I'm like, gosh, does this replace you, or like what happens? And she's like, no, like it'll be an add-on. And it's been fantastic.
That's awesome.
It's a pretty cool thing that it gives you like only fact.
Yeah. It's great that when you have a team member bring ideas to the table too, as you're trying to grow and scale your team.
Yeah.
I have a team member who came to me a couple weeks ago. He's like, so I kind of want to improve the spreadsheet. I was like, great. I hate it. Cool. He's like, oh, awesome. All right. I'm not going to tread lightly now.
Yeah.
Like, listen, let's make improvements.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's good. So I know that we probably are running close to time now. If you're a business owner, not somebody who's just looking for a 1040.
If you're not looking for a 1040.
Not looking for just a personal tax return. No, if you're a business owner who's struggling with tax strategy, planning, forecasting, or simply just filing your taxes and you're looking for a trusted professional, these two guys are it. I am not just stating, I passed Tyler a few people. No, I did. And he actually has helped many of them within the first few weeks of just meeting them. So I would recommend that you reach out to them. Tyler or Drew, what's the best contact method?
We can leave our info at clukeyandtebault.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also our telephone number. I don't know if
either's fine. It's all going to go in the show notes below.
Okay.
So
true. And when you click on the link, you see a picture of me. I have hair in that picture. I'm kind of bald now.
Well, you got a hat on, so no one would know the difference.
So true.
Yeah.
You're outing yourself at this point.
No.
You just outed yourself.
I had a new client come in the other day, and they literally looked at me and go, you don't look like you do on your picture on the computer. And I was like,
that means you need a new headshot, Drew.
No, I like that headshot. It looks good. I'm wearing a suit in that one too.
Ew.
I got hair.
Yes, so our info account at clukeyandtebault.com. You can go on clukeyandtebault.com and find us on direct contact methods. We have our emails and telephone numbers on there.
Awesome. Yeah. So all of that is going to be in the show notes or video description below. I hope that you guys get the financial help that you're looking for. Tyler, Drew, or T and Drew, thank you so much for taking time to be with me on the podcast today.
Yes. Yeah. This was awesome.